Okay, everyone, we will go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to the Advisory Committee meeting for the Alcohol Division 005 and 006 Modernization. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend this afternoon's meeting. My name is Nicole Blase, and I am the Rules Coordinator for the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission. A few housekeeping notes before we get started today. Today's meeting is being recorded. Please be aware of whether or not your phone or computer is muted. Committee members are asked to remain on mute until the introductions portion of the meeting or unless you are speaking. Only invited committee members were selected due to their level of interest or position within the community. With that in mind, we ask that each of you serve as goodwill ambassadors to the discussion so that you may represent your constituency professionally. Please be courteous to other committee members so that we don't have multiple participants speaking at once. You may use the raise hand function in Teams and we will call on you in order. If you are not on Teams, please interject when appropriate and we will call on you in turn. Non-committee members will be able to tender comments during the public hearing and during the comment period. Committee members, please state your first and last name when you make a comment for the record. In the hopes of cultivating a platform for better discussion, we will not be doing a share screen during the rules discussion portion of this RAC. That being said, please be sure you have a copy of the draft rules in front of you or let us know if you need a copy sent to you. Today is Tuesday, August 23rd at approximately 1 p.m. Many of you are familiar with the rulemaking process, but for those of you who have not yet had the opportunity, or for those listening in, I will begin by saying a few words about rulemaking and the purpose of advisory committee meetings. The purpose of an advisory committee is to increase the public's involvement in the drafting and development of administrative rules. The Oregon Legislature, through its enactment of the Administrative Procedures Act, ORS Chapter 183, stresses the critical importance of the public's participation in policy development. Advisory committees are an excellent way to solicit input from internal and external stakeholders who are likely to be impacted by the development or amendment of agency policy and rule. Consequently, advisory committee invitees may include licensees, permittees, industry representatives, OLCC staff, members of law enforcement, local government, the public, local community organizations, small businesses, and other interested stakeholders. The purpose of having all of the members on this committee today is to hear from different parts of the industry and public health and safety partners. The Commission strives to hear from all interested parties. Our role today will be to explain the background and context of these rules and the changes that are being proposed in this package. We will provide facilitation to ensure that all committee members can provide input today. During this afternoon's meeting, I will seek your input on the proposed amendments to the Alcohol Division 005 and 006 Modernization. Today, staff will explain the proposed language changes to modernize many of the Division 5 and 6 rules. Under Oregon's public meeting law, this meeting is open to the public, and members of the public are free to observe our discussion, but may not offer comments. The agency will digitally record this advisory committee meeting and will produce and circulate a record of our discussion. However, because this meeting is intended to promote the open exchange of ideas, we will maintain an informal atmosphere, and meeting minutes will record only the topics discussed and the main points made. Approximately 1 week after our meeting, we will post and distribute the meeting's audio. We will now move on to introductions. I will call on you to introduce yourself. When introducing yourself, please state your name and the organization you are representing. I will go first again. I'm Nicole Blase, and I'm the Rules Coordinator with the OLCC. Dan Croy.
Sure. Dan Croy, OLCC. My official and fun title is Operations and Policy Analyst, but I just like to say I'm the worker bee here in the alcohol license land. been here a few years and I've done a few racks and I've met or talked to most of you, but not all of you.
Thank you, Dan. Tyler Glaze.
Hi, I'm Tyler Glaze. I'm an alcohol policy analyst with the Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission, and I work really closely with Dan Croy.
Thanks, Tyler. Carly Vetter.
Hi there, I am Carly Vetter, and I am the statewide alcohol compliance specialist.
Thank you, Carly. Kelly Rout.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kelly Rout, Policy Rules and Public Records Advisor here at the OLCC.
Thanks, Kelly. Meredith King.
Hello, Meredith King. I am the liquor licensing technician with the OLCC, and I've spoken to a few of you that I recognize here.
Great, thank you. Larry Carey. No, Larry. Alan Taylor.
Hi, Alan Taylor. I'm the brewmaster and co-owner of Zogel House Brewing, and also run Senate Brewing and a brewery in New Mexico with a distillery in New Mexico.
Great, thank you, Alan. Carol Unruh. Jolie Wallace.
I'm Jolie Wallace from Southern Oregon, from Del Rio Vineyards.
Great, thanks. Kevin Sanderson.
Hi, everyone. Kevin Sanderson. I work for New Seasons Market, retail store operating in the general Portland area.
Welcome, Kevin. Courtney Kaufman.
Hi, I'm Courtney Kaufman. I am the Food and Beverage Coordinator for the Holt Center of Performing Arts in Eugene.
Thank you. Julia Heath. Greg Astley.
Hi, excuse me, Greg Astley, Director of Government Affairs for the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association.
Welcome, Greg. Danelle Romaine. Jeff Giametta.
Hi, Jeff Giametta, counsel at Davis Wright Tremaine in Portland. I represent alcohol licensees, mostly in the supplier tier, but also lots of retailers as well.
Thank you. Welcome. Aaron Howard. Scott Winkles. Amanda Q.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, Nicole. Good afternoon, Amanda Q, Oregon Health Authority, Public Health Division. I use she, her pronouns, and a prevention policy team lead.
Thank you, Amanda. Lindy Petty.
Hi, my name is Lindy Petty, and I'm the Alcohol and Drug Prevention Coordinator for Washington County Public Health. And my screen is frozen, so I don't know if you heard that.
We did, yes.
Okay,
Thank you. Gary Engler.
Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Engler. I'm a police officer with the City of Salem Police Department.
Thank you. Ryan Stone. All right, and lastly, Sergeant Tim Plummer. All right, thank you all for attending. We will now move on to our discussion of the proposed rule language, and Dan Croy, our liquor policy analyst, will take it from here and describe the changes to the draft.
Nicole. Hi, I'm sorry, Dan. This is Danelle Romaine. I was just having audio problems. I just wanted to say I'm from the Beer and Wine Distributors Association.
Great, thanks, Danelle. All right, Dan, take it away.
Okay, so I'm looking at the agenda and I see that there's a summary and a discussion, and in my brain, I'm probably going to get all mushed together. I couldn't figure out a way to make it clean. The other thing is I am going to be aware of breaks, and I'm hoping it's okay if we target like 2-ish, 2:15-ish, kind of see how things go. Hopefully everybody's okay with that. But if you need a break before that, just let me know. I bet everybody would be okay with that. So, oh yeah, and the hand raising. I was thinking about asking people that didn't know how to raise their hand on Teams to raise their hand. And I thought that'd be what the federal government would do. So I'm not doing that. So hopefully everybody knows how to raise their hand on Teams. But if you don't and you want to say something, and you'll be really good at this, and no one else is talking, it's okay to say something. All right, so let's get going. And oh, and by the way, I got like 3 or 4 or 5 documents up because I need to take notes. So now I need to find, where is my summary? Here it is. Okay, so ultimately, what I hope it's okay to do a little bit of an introduction before we get into them, and like, why are we here? Why are we doing these rules? And to me, I divided it into two buckets. One is what I've been calling catch up with the now. So we write our rules, and if you took the time, and maybe we'll do it anyway, some of these rules are really old, like 14 years old or so, and yes, they were good at the time, but as it turns out, industry needs change, consumer needs change, public needs change, OLCC needs change, but the rules don't change. So we need to bring our rules into the now. And that's why the word that I use, modernization, really to me summarizes it and tells the picture. That's the primary effort here, is just catch up with the now. The second piece that I think we're doing is, so don't stop there, Dan, because, well, now you'll make them now and then they'll freeze in place again. So try to think about the future, and that's what this is doing. So we are, I think people know this, maybe not. We are, good news, we are going to go to an online liquor licensing system for annuals, renewals, and specials. It's not going to be implemented for about 3 years, excuse me, 2 years. But we need to start planning for that and setting up our systems, because the system that's being built can only do so many things. So we need to have rules that fit with that. And we're going to try to do the best that we can. As it turns out, they're not totally done building the system yet. And it might be in another year, we'll have to come back and do some more tweaks to more rules. But for now, we're trying to do the best that we can. So we sent you 2 documents. One's the summary page that has the 9 concepts in it. And the other one is, well, what the heck? What if you wanted to see all the rule language document? That's the one that's 109 pages. And if you want to talk about a specific rule and bring up the language, I'm all in on that. I love that kind of stuff. But it might be that we can just stay with the summary and kind of go through it and then pick and choose here and there what rules we have to go to. So generally, I'm going to stick with the summary. But again, if people have questions or comments or want to talk about stuff, I want to hear it. I mentioned before, I've done 1 or 2 racks. I think some of you, well, I know some of you have, some of you are newer. I personally love these racks. I love it when we can think about stuff ahead of time and do the best job that we can do to get something that we think is going to be acceptable to everybody. I've learned that sometimes we can't be perfect. Okay, most of the times we can't, but I don't want to let that stop me. I want us to try and figure this out. And I'm always very happy and very proud of RAC members that they can bring comments and perspectives, and we can figure out, we can build something that has a good chance of working. So in my Dan geeky way, I really love these racks. So I'm going to go through the concepts. And again, if anybody has any comments or questions, going too fast or whatever, raise your hand. I'll try to do a good job of watching the screen and see if the hand's raised, but it's always okay if you're like me and you don't remember to raise your hand, just start talking. That's okay with me. So the first one is about application processing. Basically, there's just a lot of housekeeping stuff here. And the big one, though, the big change is for annual licenses now, when an applicant turns in their application to us, the process is applicant turns it into us. We do a little bit of reviewing and then we give them some of the documents and they take it back to the local governing body, which is a basic required by another statute, 401.166. And then the local governing body has an opportunity to give a recommendation. Now, hold that thought, because for special licenses, for years, we've done the opposite. Applicants that want to apply for a special license, fill out their application paperwork, take it to the local governing body first, and then turn it into us. What's really going to work better for the new online system is if the applications come in and they've already been looked at by the local governing body. And the local governing body is, if the address for the licensed premises is within the city limits, then it's the city. And if the address for the licensed premises outside the city limits, then it's the county. So that's just the major change with this rule. And then there's just what I call lots of cleanup stuff. So that, does anybody have any questions about this concept? I mean, I know we sent them out ahead of time and people had the opportunity to read them. And I know everybody's not like me where you love doing this stuff and figuring it out. Some of us love puzzles. I'm one. I love to sit here and figure out the puzzle pieces. But I also know that that doesn't really work for everybody. So I'm okay. Get questions, comments, or by the way, if you kind of think about something later after the RAC meeting and you want to send them to me or you want to talk to me one-on-one, I'm all in on that too. Just send me an email and we can talk, or just send me the info. So back to application processing, pretty basic, a lot of housekeeping stuff. Don't see any hands. Oh, I do see a hand. Jeff, you got a hand up. Go for it.
Hey, just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So the big change here is that the local governing body endorsement, are we saying that it has to be obtained before the applicant applies to OLCC, or it just has to be in progress? Because there's that 45-day period that
Right.
local governing body has to
Yeah.
work with.
So it has to be obtained, but the way we've written a rule that it either is obtained or the applicant can show that it went past the 45 days, or in some cases, there's actually local governing bodies that say, don't bother us. We don't want to be bothered with this process. And so it just reverts to the 45-day process. So yes.
Okay, so I think overall that's going to lengthen the amount of time it takes for applicants to obtain a license, because a lot of these local governing bodies, they'll wait the full 45 days. So applicants will have to get that done first and wait 45 days and then start with OLCC. So I understand. I think it's done that way for marijuana licenses, but one of the big things on the alcohol side is that we could use that time period where not a whole lot is happening to get the OLCC process underway.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm just concerned about the overall length of time that's going to add to everybody that applies for something.
Yeah, that's a good perspective. Yeah, we'll have to noodle on that, but I'm writing it down as something to think about, and I'll definitely bring it back to decision makers. Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't know. Yeah, because that's one of the things that's a done deal, is we are going to have to change our process so the endorsement comes in with the application. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty big. So
Yeah, and we don't have to settle it now, but I just want to point out that's a huge kind of thorn there. But let's got plenty more to talk about, so we can keep going.
Right, got it. Right. So let's go back to gosh. There we go. Okay, so we're still on number 1, application processing. Anybody have any comments, question about that one? Oh, Kevin Sanderson, you got your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm newer to the RAC committees and this process, so if I'm out of line or doing something weird, let me know. But just had some general questions about, looks like we removed the 0314 rule. That was kind of the, it seemed like the appeal process for if you get deactivated or your application gets removed. And I didn't see anything added in the amended rules in terms of that type of appeal process. So just if, it wasn't.
You got muted, Kevin.
Kevin, you're on mute.
How much? Yeah, I think someone might have muted everybody.
All. Someone just muted us all. Someone didn't
Yeah.
all mute. Stop that, whoever did that.
Didn't like what I was saying.
Yeah.
I think we just missed the last part.
Okay. Yeah, so just basically what's the appeal process? How do you be heard if your application does get denied or inactivated? And what, I guess, where is that mentioned in the rules?
Yeah, so denied is different than inactivated. Denied, we actually have to have a legal basis for that, and applicants will get a right to an administrative hearing if we propose to deny an application. That's not changing at all. The refuse to accept and refuse to process rules, those concepts got folded into the new revised or proposed to get folded into the new 05 Division 5 0312. And we're changing the name of it and just calling it inactivating instead of refusing to process and refusing to accept it. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. It's more just, I guess, if it does get inactivated or your process or your application gets inactivated, I guess, is there a chance for you to continue that application process, or do you have to resubmit everything and start from the beginning?
So that's a good question. And the way that we wrote the rule was that, or the proposed wording is that so backing up, we put some timelines in it because right now, well, for many years, we've struggled with applicants. Hope it's okay to say this, the bell curve of life. You get a lot of applicants do really good. You get most of them that do pretty good, but we work with them and they get there. And then you get some applicants, usually because they just don't want to. We tell them we need stuff from them and they don't get it to us. We need your lease. We need your endorsed application. And they just don't turn it in. And so eventually we need to do something with that. And so now the new process is going to say, essentially, we're going to give you a written notice and applicant, you have 10 calendar days to get us what we need. And if you don't get it to us, then we're going to inactivate your application. And if you want to apply, then you have to start all over again. And honestly, on the bell curve of life, that's really going to be a very small percentage of people, but number wise, it takes a huge amount of staff time. So that's the idea. So, all right. Anybody else have any more questions on that one? Okay, so we're going to move on to number 2, liquor license refusal reasons. If I had to pick anything that was a geeky technical one, this would be it. The the primary thing we're doing here is changing the term from good cause to intervening circumstances. If we propose to deny a license, we have to say what the standard is, and we have to, and our term for that is cite the criterion. We have to list out what facts there are to show that there's a basis to deny the license. But we also are required, not just a good idea, required to put the facts in on the other side, of the scale that show, well, what are the good things? And hello, for years, we've called that good cause. But a few years ago, we were told we can't use that term anymore. We have to use intervening circumstances. So that's all we're doing is changing the term. And in the process, we are taking some of those intervening circumstances that came from case precedent and putting them into rule to help. The intention is to help staff and the public understand what those factors are. So hopefully you can see why that's a technical geeky fix, but it's something that we're doing that actually would be super helpful. So does anybody have any questions on that one? I figured as not. So let's go to concept number 3, the food service requirements. So ultimately, right, I talked in the beginning about, you know, industry needs change, consumer needs change. If there was one that was going to be the poster child for that, it would be food service requirements. Our food service rule they were written in 2008. So that's the rules I mentioned that are 14 years old. They, at the time, were good intention. They have 2 terms in there for a full on premises commercial. And gosh, I hope when you get more geeky on you, but the legislature created the type of license called a full on premises commercial, just different from a limited. The limited allows only beer, wine, cider for drinking on the premises and factory sealed to go. The full on premises allows all that and distilled liquor for drinking on the premises. But the legislature created 6 different types of full on premises licenses. I shorten it, just call them F licenses. And one of the Fs is an FCOM, and it has different and more food and meal and seating requirements. It's really, it's the license that most full service restaurants get as an FCOM. And years ago, we got these 2 terms, substantial food item and meal. And as it turned out, they are confusing to industry and sometimes to staff. And we spend a lot of time on the difference between those 2 that we don't really have the luxury to spend the time on. And so this intention is just to truly clean up the food rules, get rid of the term substantial food item, adjust the term meal. And this is a term that over the years, we've had many tries of trying to make it perfect. And it's just one of those terms that's never going to be perfect, never going to be measurable. And this seems to be better than what it is now. So the intent is there, and I think it'll work. And then the other thing we're doing is now, if you have an FCOM, you have to have a minimum amount of dining seating. And right now the rule says indoor dining seating. And it was always happening prior to COVID. When COVID hit, who wasn't doing outside seating? Well, pretty much everybody. So there's a need to allow licensees to be able to count outdoor seating in their total seating requirement. So this changes that and allows licensees to count any seats, indoor or outdoor. So those are the basic changes with the food stuff. Anybody have any questions about that? And no hands, no People talking. All right, I'm gonna move to number 4, which will.
Sorry,
Oh.
Dan.
Dan, we have some hands up.
Yep,
Oh,
we have hands.
okay. Well, I don't know. Oh, I forgot to say it first, if there's more than one hand, and I don't know whose hand up, hopefully you know whose hand went up first. So Lindy, Amanda, remember who was first? Or does it matter? Amanda, you got A, go first.
All right, A, going on the A. Thanks, Dan. I know you can't see all the many hands. Just a question on this one here. I understand the technical modernization around language and meal and cleaning that up and the food service rules. I'm just wondering about scenarios like with the FCOM licensees. Does that change privileges around distilled spirits for like a subgroup of FCOM licenses? I'm thinking about like food cart environments and more in areas that may have had a limited license. And does this change privileges to allow distilled spirits drinks that weren't allowed previously? I'm just kind of wondering about that, if that actually allows for that, even if this is just a technical cleanup, if that's a change.
Right,
Because of the
yeah,
because of the seating. Sorry, I didn't say which
Yeah.
language piece. Because of the
Right.
the change in the
Mhm.
definition by like removing that indoor piece, and
Right.
just dining seat requirements, right?
Yeah, yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, so food carts, right now, because of the indoor dining seat, generally can't get a FCOM. And so what they've been getting is a limit on premises for 12 years, I think. I can't remember, long time. We've had food carts with liquor licenses, and as it turns out, our experience is pretty favorable, really. No big issues, no big problems. But yes, this would change it so that food carts would be eligible for FCOM. So man, you still got your hand up. You got more questions on that?
I'm trying to lower it here. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. I am electronically challenged, so there you go. Okay, Linda, you're up.
Funny enough, I actually had the same question as Amanda, or very similar, but just in kind of continuing the conversation, I think from a public health standpoint, it is a little concerning that, you know, a food cart lot, for example, that shares maybe, let's say, exactly the required number of seating, so 30 outdoor spots, could now be shared by an indefinite number of food carts? Or would it have to be that each food cart demonstrates that they have 30 spots to themselves outdoor?
I think I know what you're asking. So we license, I'm going to back up a little bit and then get into that. We license two things, the person/entity in the premises. When it comes to retail licenses, which is what the Fs and the Ls are, I would never say, always never promise to guarantee anything, but highly likely never issue two retail licenses to the same premises. They always have to split it up. For food carts, because they've been getting limiteds, or my acronym is L, by far, it's one food cart that'll get the limited license, even though there's 2 or 4, 10 or 12 or 20 food carts on the lot. We just give one liquor license. And that would continue to be the same thing. There'd be one license, although it's possible that more than one food cart could be on the same license. But yeah, and then we license the whole premises anyway. Most of the food carts nowadays, in the beginning, they were a little different, but now we just license the whole cart or the whole pod or the whole parking lot, because they want to have term of art walk around events where people can go to cart A and get something in cart B and get something in cart C and get something, but still carry their beer with them or whatever. And typically there is seating either like a general area or targeted areas where they have their seating. But it would all be one licensee that would be responsible for whatever goes on that premises. Liquor law violations, problems, all that.
So currently, food carts cannot get a full on.
Generally, it all depends on your definition of food cart. There's no really interpretation or formal definition, but there are food cart type operations out there that have a brick and mortar attached to them. And so the brick and mortar, because they're indoor and have 30 seats, is licensed, and also the outside, and the outside looks just like a food cart. So someone driving by that one and someone driving by that one would go, oh, they're food carts. Why does that one have a full and that one doesn't? Well, there's a reason for it, but generally, right, if it's a standalone food cart right now, they cannot get a FCOM.
I just want to be clear, sorry. So this change will allow that, like a standalone, for example, to apply for one based on this definition change.
Yeah, based on that, and based on our experience over the last approximately 12 years, where when food carts first came on the scene and started getting liquor licenses, it was definitely an unknown, and people were not just us, people were unsure. As it turns out, we have no history of violations, literally no history of violations or problems with food carts, with alcohol stuff. Fights aren't breaking out, drug deals aren't going on. They just seem to be doing okay. So yeah, this wouldn't really change anything other than they would be able to sell drinks, cocktails.
Yeah, I just think that there's environments where having people roaming around with cocktails might, in a non-defined outdoor space, which a lot of these food cart lots are, might make it easier, for example, for minors to access a cocktail. If, you know, a friend or a parent or whatever purchased it, and then it's just kind of this undefined space outdoors, where youth and families often are participating in the food carts, at least the ones that I've been a part of, seem to be very family friendly. So that would be my only concern with not having some sort of parameter around what that looks like for outdoor, like primarily outdoor food carts or whatever establishments that have only seating outside.
I have a puzzle for you, so I'm writing that down. What's outdoor? Oh, Dan, don't ask me to. Yeah, that's part of the puzzle that we're getting is I stand out in a cornfield. I'm pretty sure I'm outdoor. I'm inside a restaurant, brick and mortar, walls, ceilings, everything. I'm pretty sure I'm indoor. But now I'm outside and somebody put in 4x4 posts and an 8x10 piece of plywood over the top. Is that indoor or outdoor? And if it's one or the other, why is it one and not the other? I get it. So I've written it down. I mean, and yes, we have had multiple discussions, number nature, over the years with staff about this issue. And I think I talked earlier about, I don't know if there's ever any way to get to perfect. I'm not sure this is one that would ever be perfect, but right now the interest and the need and the demand is leaning more towards allowing this. But definitely I wrote it down. I'll definitely make sure we talk once again with decision makers about that.
Thank you. I know there's been some other hands up, so thank you for answering the question.
Okay, but thanks, Lindy. Alan, you're up.
Cool. So I was thinking about this with the food carts. You're talking about having a food cart that could potentially serve food and serve as a full on-premise. Are you also talking about one that just serves cocktails?
So I don't know if that can practically happen, because the other thing we do is we sign minor postings to premises, and the food carts want all ages, including minors, to be at their food cart pods. In order to get that posting, they're going to have to convince us that drinking alcohol will just never predominate. And if you're only serving cocktails and no food, I don't see how we would ever get there.
Well, that's kind of the second part of the question I was going to follow up on. So say there's 10 food carts, 9 of them are selling food, 1 of them just wants to sell hard liquor. Do the other 9 pods count as substantial meals or food items, or whatever you want to call that? In that situation, would the hard alcohol be required to have their own food, or does the food pod as a designated space consider the other food pod operators as food?
Both. It's the person with the FCOM is going to have minimum food requirements that it's going to have to provide. But when the other food providers may also, and so do, provide food in addition to that. But if the alcohol provider, if all the food carts close and the alcohol provider is not providing food or providing the wrong amount or whatever, wrong nature, then they just won't be able to provide. And that's how it is now, by the way, with limited on premises license, in order to meet the minor posting requirement. If you're serving only alcohol and there's no food service, minors should not be there.
But this in the same scenario, so say they have I guess the food requirement is regardless of if the minors available or not, right? So even if everybody's over 21, they're hanging out at the cocktail lounge, the cocktail lounge still has to have enough food for them.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And when we sign a minor posting, it applies 24/7. So what they can't say is, well, minor posting allows minors, but minors aren't here right now, so I don't have to follow food requirements and I can allow drinking to predominate. You can't do that. Just because minors aren't there doesn't mean that you don't have to follow minor postings.
Right. Okay. Those were my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Alan. All right. Who else has food questions?
I guess I could throw one more thing in real quick. So say you need 5 food requirements and the kitchen gets hammered and they run out of food and they drop down to 4 different options. Do they have to close down?
Remember, there's a difference between closing down and not selling and serving alcohol. Probably, never say never, never say always, never promise or guarantee anything. All answers always based on the facts of the case. But based on those facts, likely probably couldn't sell alcohol anymore. Would still be able to stay open and sell food and non-alcoholic beverages and T-shirts and that kind of thing. Right.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right, who else? Okay to move on. Yeah, I'm moving on to number 4. So this is just allow licensed businesses to solicit and receive orders and payment for alcoholic beverages at all hours. So it's something that's happening now. The statute essentially says that sale is very broadly defined. But if you want to go online and buy your groceries from Freddy's or Safeway's and you want to do it at 3 o'clock in the morning, technically Freddy's and Safeway's aren't supposed to be soliciting or receiving orders for alcoholic beverages. So we're trying to, again, come into the now. If it's happening, it's not going to go away. If we can build a safe way to do it, then that's the idea. So essentially it would allow these businesses to take and receive these orders and payment, but the actual delivery or handoff of the alcoholic beverages still has to be within the legal hours. which is what's happening now, as far as we know. So that's that one. And then let's see where. Being in a loss. Sorry, I just have too many documents up. I don't know which one it's in now. All right. Well, anyways, does anybody have any questions on that one? Okay, then we're going to go to what I titled general housekeeping. There was just a lot of things that we have to bring into the now, and I couldn't think of a specific title for them or a helpful title, so I just bunched them all under the general housekeeping kinds of stuff. So with that said, does anybody have any questions about these? Jeff, go for it.
I do have some questions on the change to 05, 0311. And this may be something, this gets into real technical language. This may be something we could follow up on offline. 'Cause it gets pretty in the weeds, but
Yep,
just in
that's
terms of,
Yep.
you know, who's being pulled in with a financial interest. It seems like there's a change being made here. It's pulling in people who actually exercise control, or just if people are entitled to exercise control over the entity, which seems pretty broad. I guess maybe I could ask it by saying, what's OLCC's concern here in making changes here on this particular 311?
The concern is that in broad, right, layman terms, we do have people, businesses that are pretty good about scheming ways, telling us who's actually running the business. And that's really what it comes down to. That's what we're trying to get to. So if you have some ideas about words or language, I'm totally all in listening on that.
Okay. I'll follow up offline because it doesn't seem like anybody else is super interested in this, but I can follow up later.
Definitely a big thing. And speaking about rules that we constantly struggle with, and no matter how many good brains we put on them, which we've done with racks and we're doing with this rack, it seems like we never get it quite right in a way that works. So is this just another effort? Well, I don't know if it's just another effort, but it is an effort, and I hope we're making progress, even though it's not perfect. So, let's see what else. Okay. So anybody else have any questions on the general housekeeping rules? All right. Gonna move on to the definitions rule, which is essentially in the summary document clarifying frequently used terms. We are going to Got, you know what, my evil plan to go back and forth between documents isn't working out too well. Oh gosh. Thought I was gonna be able to do, I could do it when I practiced it 1,000 times yesterday and today. Here we go. I just was bringing up the wrong thing. So one of them is the definitions. We would really benefit from actually defining the terms that we use and putting them into one place, at least the common ones. I tried to find all of the definitions, all the terms that we use that need a definition and could stand to be in there, and they just didn't fit well. So I took the ones that we use the most. So that's one of the rules that we're proposing to do, is just put them all in one rule and define them. Hopefully that's helpful to everybody. And then we need, for mid-years, we've needed a better way to deal with entities. And this new rule, we are attempting to do that. And for other people who, I was going to call Jeff also a techno geeky guy. I think he'd be okay with that, Jeff, but maybe I should do that. At least me. We're looking at changing the percentages for who we consider to be an owner. And that's important because it drives the background checks we do and the paperwork we get. We're just upping it from, now it's 10%. We're just going to up it to 20%, which is what they've been doing in cannabis land for, they tell me, a number of years. Seems to work for them. So yes, we're going to copycat them. Any questions on that one? Don't see any hands up, no questions. Okay, we're going to move on to number 7, outdoor area rules. This, Lindy, so sorry for the teasing, but that's been a problem for me for years. We've had these outdoor area rules, and honestly, I said at the beginning many years ago, tell me what outdoor is, and tell me, and more, just as importantly, tell me what indoor is. And everybody said, no, that's no big deal, Dan. Nobody's going to care. As it turns out, people care. As it turns out, the people that care are applicants and licensees, and then they're asking me. And it really gets down to it. As a licensee, you're always responsible for your premises, indoor and outdoor. And to try to separate them out was causing a lot of work for something that got really little value. This proposal would just say, okay, from now on, it doesn't matter if your licensed premises is indoor or outdoor. It's very clear. Licensee, you have the same standards. Can't serve minors, can't allow minors to have alcohol, have to serve illegal hours, all that stuff. Can't allow drug use, fights, all that pesky stuff. So that's just what this is. So does anybody have any questions about this one? All right, then I'm moving on to number 8. Modernized by exempting certain activities on the part of technology providers from licensing requirements. So this one is bringing a little bit of confusion. So hopefully this is helpful. In my brain, over the last several years, it really comes down to there's 3 buckets or 3 categories. There are people who provide only technology. They have the platform. Pardon?
Dan, sorry, you have a hand up. This is Carly. You have a hand up.
Oh, good. Thanks for saying something. Lindy, go for it.
Sorry, it takes me like 30 seconds to find the raise hand button. So I apologize for always being a little late on that.
Well, that's all right. Well, just unmute and tell me you have a question.
Sure, I'll do I hate to beat the dead horse on the outdoor area conversation. It does feel like a pretty major change. You know, and I understand that it's been fairly difficult to identify what's indoor and what's outdoor. And I mean, just looking at what's been crossed out, like there was a lot of work, it looks like, to try to clarify it, and it still was possibly creating confusion and or excess work and to figure it out. But I guess maybe just for a point of clarification, when the establishment is defining their premises, do they have free reign as to what's identified outside as their premises? Does it extend to the sidewalk? Does it extend to the street? You know, I guess that's more of like a question. Just I'm not sure. Is that something that is considered when they're applying for their premises?
Yeah, yes, they have to have access to it. And if it's on private property, typically because they own the property, or they can show that they have a lease or a rental agreement. If it's on public property, then that gets trickier because the public body has to allow them to do that. So if they want to have a sidewalk cafe or something on the street, I mean, and there have been a few exceptions over the years in the city of Portland when they like blocked off the street and then let everybody have their own area. But again, we license the person/entity in the premises, and they have to identify their premises. And then the statute, which is 471159, let me bring it up here, talks about the OLCC may not license a location that does not have defined boundaries. Licensed premises need not be enclosed by a wall, fence, or other structure, but we require such if needed. I would say most of the time for outdoor areas, we don't need to actually require a fence, although many licensees do that. But what they do have to do is when they apply to get a license, they have to turn in a floor plan and tell us what their licensed premises is going to be. And they're, I would say, super good about telling us what their licensed premises is going to be, whether it's only indoor or to include sidewalk cafes or patios or that kind of thing. And right, so they have to tell us. We don't necessarily, for special licenses, we oftentimes make it part of the control plan to put up some kind of barrier. But for annual licenses, we just really haven't had the need at this point to require a fence or some kind of barrier for the most part.
Thank you for explaining that. You know, I'm just wondering, in looking at specifically one of the lines that says, it's hard to describe where it's at, but it says the applicant or licensee fails to demonstrate there is or will be adequate supervision of the outdoor area so as to prevent violations of the liquor laws. And I understand that they're already responsible for ensuring that they're compliant with liquor laws. But in an outdoor space, let's say in a short-staffed, which is a pretty common thing, restaurant, where the outdoor space is just, you know, unsupervised and kind of a free-for-all in a way, you know, are we creating more of an environment where there could be access to minors, for example, or violating any compliance issues? All that to say, I'm just curious about how, like, if we're totally treating indoor and outdoor the same, is that going to create potential issues for owners and licensees to actually implement and maintain compliance?
Yeah, we would, so yeah, I'm typing. We would still likely continue to ask them how they intend to control the area. But honestly, we just believe them because, and trust them. I mean, it's difficult to say that, well, you're not going to do that, or we don't believe you. And then ultimately it's the proof's in the pudding thing. And then Carly's a alcohol compliance enforcement tech, and she could give you better information on background with that. Like, what is our experience?
Yeah, I was actually planning to do that, so I'm glad that you guys brought this up. So I was a licensed investigator years and years ago, and I also was an inspector, and now I'm the statewide public safety and compliance specialist. And what I will say about outdoor areas is that, you know, if I'm being very honest, sometimes those places are actually better controlled than inside the premises for whatever reason. So we don't tend to see as many problems. I mean, you will have situations where maybe a business is located in a problematic area, or late at night, you know, they're closing and patrons will go outside and there's something disruptive in the parking lot. But when you talk about an outdoor area that is licensed to be utilized for food and alcohol service, we just don't see the problems in those spaces, either during a special event or an annually licensed location. And most of those areas are set up where, you know, you have to either go inside the business to acquire the alcohol, right? Or there's a designated server that's going to come out and deliver the alcohol, check IDs, and do those sorts of things. So I understand that there's always concerns about minors accessing alcohol. And, you know, maybe that's an area where it's understaffed and there's less visibility or whatever. But in my experience, being an inspector, most of the time when minors access alcohol, it was inside the business itself. Like there was by large, you know, differences. It was a minor walking into a business, sitting inside that business, and not necessarily the outside area. To my knowledge, I can't recall any. That's not to say that has never happened, but in my experience, that has not really been the issue. It has always been something inside the premises. So we don't have the compliance data to really back up outside areas being so, you know, so concerning to us, I guess.
No, that's fair. Thank you for providing that background. I appreciate it.
I still have it on my list. I'll definitely bring it up with decision makers about, is there, is there some acceptable middle ground that we can find?
I was thinking, you know, looking at the 2.5 pages here, like it does seem like there's a lot right now currently going into the outdoor definitions and requirements, and perhaps there's something that's just really clear and straightforward. And now that we're kind of past the COVID add-ons, you know, things that were added on through the pandemic, maybe this is a good time to think about how we can find some clearer, simpler ways to think about indoor and outdoor spaces. But that's all I got to say.
Hey,
I appreciate
let me
it.
know what ideas you have. Email them to me.
I can send them over.
Okay, good. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I guess we're still on the outdoor area stuff. Does anybody have any questions about that or any more comments? One thing I wanted to check in with folks while you're thinking about it, if you have any more comments on outdoor stuff, is maybe we'd want to take a break now, or maybe we want to wait. The meeting is scheduled to go until 4. Nicole needs about 15 minutes to do closeout stuff. So what do people want to do? Do you want to keep going, or do you want to take a break?
You did have a hand up.
I did?
Yeah, Amanda Q. Mm-hmm.
Oh. Somehow. And do you have a question?
No, it wasn't a question. It's just a comment reflecting, just for the record. I know you're trying to move us to break potentially. That just noting that, you know, the expansion of some of the non-abutting, you know, license privileges for outdoors that were expanded during COVID, you know, those are being repealed now in this package. Correct, Dan? Like some of those.
Yeah, if I understand your question, yeah, those
so,
were implemented.
Yeah.
My word, kind of an emergency thing.
Right.
People couldn't use inside, so they went outdoors, and we bent over backwards to make that happen. Don't really see the need for that. And prior to that, applicants who wanted to use an outdoor area, either as part of the application before they got licensed, had to tell us about it, or if they wanted to expand or extend their outdoor area, they had to get prior approval. And that's what we would go back to that. You would have to get prior approval if you're already a licensee and you want to use an outdoor area.
Great, thank you.
And I think, Lindy, for you too, that might, this is Carly Better, by the way, that might, I don't know if you had some concerns about when we had those emergency, rules in place that were allowing that expansion without doing the full fine, pre-approval and all that stuff, the limited duration, intermittent kind of expansions. I think that there was a lot of people that might have had concerns about what that was looking like or how that was being controlled. Certainly inspectors too. I mean, it was just something that happened to really quickly to accommodate the industry. And so rolling back those and getting to a more formal process where we're working with licensees and licensees are aware and understand their requirements and what their boundaries are helps to alleviate some of the concerns that maybe you have as well.
That's a great point. Thank you. And does help.
So still on outdoor areas. I don't want to take a break until people are okay with moving off of outdoor areas. All right, so do people feel like intense one way or the other? Like, Dan, I'm into this. Let's just get it over with, keep going. Or is it, man, I need a break. You're talking too much.
I could go get a little bit more water if you want to give me 2 minutes.
Well, I was thinking maybe it'd be better safe than sorry. Nicole, you're the expert. How long is a break?
Why don't we go it's 2:09 right now. Why don't we reconvene at 2:15?
Perfect.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. See you in a few minutes.